All right, hey everybody. In this tutorial, we are going to learn some of the basics of Adobe Photoshop. And the scenario that we are going to imagine is that I am a poor, lonely soul that really wants to go to the beach, and I want all my friends to think that I have been to the beach, but unfortunately for myself, I just have not been to the beach. But luckily for me, I know how to use Adobe Photoshop, and I am going to get a picture of that said beach, and I am going to cut myself out and put it into it with a nice little text greeting to amaze all of my supposed friends there. And as we do this, you'll learn some of the basics of Photoshop, and you'll be able to take the skills that you learn here and apply them to your own individual projects that are less that have less obnoxious behavior than myself right here. So I am going to make a new file first. Actually, before we start, sometimes like people don't have this black background here, and that can get annoying. If you go down here, application frame, like you can see that takes out that black background. I don't know why you would want that, but if it's not there, try clicking that and that should work. So I am going to go to File, New, and I will call this Beach Party 16. Cool. And you can see like you could decide how wide and how high you want it. So this right here is in pixels, 1831 by 2942. And I could change it to inches, centimeters, millimeters, points. I'm not actually sure what picos are. I'll change it to inches, and I will have, let's have like a landscape view on typical paper. So I'll do that by 8.5, and I'll create this. Cool. All right, now I have my white background, and the first thing I am going to do is I am going to get my beach background. So I am going to go into my browser of choice, and I am just going to type beach, and there's the beaches near me. And what's a good one? That's okay. I like this one. Let's take this one, and if you just control click or right click, you can save the image, and beach is the appropriate name for that as anything. And I will save it, and beach JPG. Go back into Photoshop, and now if I go to File and Open, I could open my beach picture right there, and there I have it. And now I can go back and forth between the two tabs. So I have this picture open. And what we want to do now to get this picture into here is we want to go into the layers area. And if I take, so right now it's the background. If I take it and then drag it into here, it will go like that. And now you can see that I have two layers. I just have that white background, and I have the picture of the beach. And a layer in Photoshop works just like a layer, like the literal meaning of the word layer. You have one thing on top of another. So right now, this picture is on top of the background, so you see that. I don't know. Later we will switch around like different layers so that we will put one layer on top of another. And anytime you want to get layers, you can go right here. Oh, one more thing, like mine is like this. If yours isn't like that, you could change the workspaces. So like if you're for painting, they have a default workspace of this would be good if you were painting, and so on. Like all of the tools, you still have all the tools no matter where you are, just the default setup is a little different. So I am in Essentials, default. So if yours doesn't look like mine, that's probably why. Now I have this white background, but it's not like my picture doesn't cover everything, and I want my picture to cover everything. So what I could do is I can go to Edit and do Free Transform, or I could do Command T, which is what I'll be doing from now on when I do that. If I click that, I can transform it how I want. And I could stretch it out a little. Let's go like that. And I can't quite get there, so what I need to do is zoom out. So I could click on this little magnifying glass over here. You could also press Z. No, I'll apply it for now and then change it. So I have the +1, and in order to make it go to minus, I can click Alt or Option, and then that will go to minus, I believe. Can you also, no, all right. And now I will zoom out, and I will free transform it again with Command C. And then now it covers the whole thing. Cool. I'm going to apply that, and now I have that looks pretty good already. And I could zoom back in by pressing Z. Cool. Now I need to get a picture of myself. You could choose how you want to do this, but I am just going to use Photo Booth. Here, Photo Booth. And that's me. I don't need my headphones. I don't know why I have them on. And let's see, I'm like that. I look a little formally dressed for the beach, but that's all right. So I'm just going to take a little picture and there's my picture. And I am just going to take this, and you could drag it onto, you could save it wherever you need, just save it somewhere, but I believe I could just drag it onto there. Cool. And there I am. Now, we have an obvious problem here, and that is you can see the background, and all that stuff in the background, my little electronic surfboard and the 3D printer and the window and all that, that's obviously not befitting of someone at the beach. So what we need to do is we need to cut out myself, and there's a couple different ways you could do this. So we have this selection tool, and if you select something, like now I am selected there. If I were to press delete, that would get rid of it. Command Z will undo it. The history tool, you could also move through your history. But if we were to go to select and inverse, now it will delete the opposite of that. So we could do that. However, you could still see that I have all of this background there, so I don't want that. Command D will deselect it. I can, if I right click on it, control click, you could choose different shapes. That's still not going to quite cut it. I have this lasso tool, which I could manually go around like that. That's a little bit better, and if I were to take my time, I could do it better. But what I want, and what's the best way to do this, is the magnetic lasso tool. And that will it will figure out where the break is, and then it will help you, it will help guide you to where you want to do it. So let's try this here. If I do it, see how it kind of like conforms to it nicely? There we go. Oops, I got a little bit, but I don't know. There we go, cool. And, oops. Oh no, I messed up. And let's try this one more time here. Get my hair. Alright. Yeah, come on, get in there. There we go. Okay, so it's not perfect, but that's alright, we can fix this. So I want to go to select, inverse, and just delete what I don't want there. Now you can see I still have some of the other stuff there. So what I could do, Command D to deselect it. I could use my eraser tool, and this will allow me to erase. But I need to zoom in first. Okay, and if I want to move around, I could press space, and then the hand thing goes. You could also go over here. Where is that? No. Where's the? Oh, there it is. The hand tool. But you could you can press space to do it automatically, and go back into here, and let's just erase some of this stuff. All right, and now here's where the space comes in handy. Oops. There we go. And so let's say like this, I want to get that finer. If you go up here, you could change the size of the brush. So if I get that nice and fine, and you could eventually get it all the way down to like 1 pixel, which is, you know, that's like an individual pixel. That's as fine as you could possibly get. I'll make this a little bigger, up to 15. Space bar to, that's what I did. All right, there we go. Space bar to move it around. that. And I want to zoom out, so Z, and all right, there's a little bit of stuff up there. Oh no, see that I messed that up. Use your history, go back, or Command Z. All right, eraser. Ooh, that's too big. Alright, move it around a bit. Cool. Alright, that's good enough for me now. If you want it better, you can make it a little better. Oh, I just need that little red thing there too. There goes the last one, I swear. Okay, cool. Now I want to zoom back out again. And I want to move my guy around, so if I go up here, this will allow you to move it. So I can go right there. And I look very happy, if a bit overdressed, at the beach. Now, what good would this be if I didn't have some kind of text saying, Aloha from Hawaii? So what I could do down here is I could get my text tool, and I can type something. So Aloha from Hawaii. And now this isn't very sort of colorful or good for what I want to do. So let's change this. I'm going to click on the text again. And I'm going to highlight it. Looks pretty cool. And if you go up to here, you could change the type of text that you want. So what would be a good one here? I kind of like this. Aloha from Hawaii. Exclamation point. Cool. Now, I want to change the color on this. So I could do, I have a couple options here. I could actually just change this, go here, mess around with all those different values. I could do that. You could center it. You could change the text size, bold. You could arc it, so like that, and then change the amount of. Actually, I kind of like that. That looks pretty cool. Okay. So, but what I want to do instead of having the black text is I want to make a nice little gradient here, and then I want to add some effects to the text. So we're going to use the selection tool again, except this time we're going to go a little bit differently. Here you have two options. You have the quick selection tool and you have the magic wand tool. The magic wand, it will select, it's kind of like this, except it's, you just click on it one time and it kind of figures out what you want. And you can set like the tolerance. If you have a higher tolerance, there will be more, let me get this right, there'll be more, it figures out like it needs less color difference to set the selection there. So if it's not doing exactly how you want it, mess around with the tolerance. If I hold down Shift, like that, I'll select all of them. All right. And what the selection tool does is that it makes it so that only what is inside the selection tool will, like anything will happen to it. So if I go to my paintbrush, I can go to my paintbrush here, and if I go down here, you could change the color. So like, let's say I change it to red. Oh. Okay, so before we do anything to our text, we need to do what is called rasterizing it. So Photoshop is a raster graphics editing program. And what that means, when you saw when we were zoomed in before, like you could see all those little pixels, and all the changes that we make are based on those pixels. But the text that they do is a vector graphics algorithm that figures out where the points need to be and like how they can go around like based on these mathematical formulas. And because the text is done a different way from the rest of the stuff, you can't paint on it and you can't add a lot of effects to it. So if you do want to paint on it, you need to rasterize it. And rasterizing it will turn it from a vector image into a bitmap or a raster image. And the downside of that is if I were to take this text right now and like I could still change the text, but once I rasterize it, it is just an image and I can't change it anymore. But for being able to paint it, that is what I want to do. So I am going to go back to my layers, and I am going to right click on that, and I am going to go to rasterize type. And now you can see how it's switched. Like before, it was this text that indicated that it was a vector image, and then after you rasterize it, it just changes into an image just like me or the background. So now, back to my initial point there, if I were to make this a little bigger, if I color here, nothing will happen. However, if I go over that, that will happen. But that's not really what I want to do either. I want to have a gradient. So this gradient, it's just switches from color to color. And if you go into here, you could pick the type of gradient that you want. And you can, where is the actual, that's not what I wanted. So I could mess around with this if I were to click on this right here. And then now I could change, like right now it goes from blue to yellow, or to blue to red to yellow. I could switch this, so if I wanted to switch that, I could go into there now. If I wanted to be more of a hue like that, I kind of like that actually. I could switch that, and let's have it go a little bit more up like that. All right, cool. That will work, and you could mess around with this all you want. And like, here's where the gradient will change. So here, like that switches it more yellow, and so on. You can the smoothness of it, and you could also change the transparency of it somewhere. I forget where, but it's okay. Oh. Oh, the opacity right there, if you wanted to make it like 50% opacity, that kind of makes it kind of clear. But I don't want to do that. Not 199 because that's impossible. All right, so I go like that. And now if I were to go over like that, I have my little gradient. Cool. And Command D will deselect. And now the last thing that I want to do is there's still like, I feel like I could still make this a little better. So if I go here, click on it, and go to my little effects, you can go to blending options, and this will allow you to make all sorts of changes to how your layer, like how it interacts with the outside of it. So if I click that, now I got a nice little bevel on there, and I think that looks pretty good actually. And you can mess around with all this stuff, the stroke, like stroke, maybe a little drop shadow. I don't want the gradient overlay. I don't want that either. And you can say, like, say you're like, oh, bevel. Let me play around with this. You could change the amount that you want and all of that. And so that is, just mess around with that to your heart's content. It's a lot of fun to play around with. And one more thing you could do, I don't know, like I think this looks pretty good, but you can mess around with the filters too. So if you wanted to noise, add noise, what would that? So you can see like it adds noise, and it's fun to just kind of mess around with and kind of tinker around with it, see what you can get, but it's pretty simple to do. So I'm not going to go over everything here. And that is your first file. So now the final thing we want to do is, I could save it, but it saves as a Photoshop file. So the only way that you could open up this file is if you had Photoshop, and I don't want that. So if I were to go to export, and you could export as the type of file that you want. And cool. You do PNG, JPEG, GIF, SVG. And if I do PNG, export all, beach party 16, PNG onto my desktop. And now I have it right there, and it opens up, and I can show that to whoever I want, and I look pretty happy right there. So that is the first tutorial there on Photoshop. So take some of the things that we learned there and see how you can apply them. Hope that was useful and fun. Have a good one. Later.